All right, we're back. Top of the hour. It's noon. You guys are eating lunch, listening to this extremely entertaining content. Brian Dawson, CEO of 1819 News, filling in for Andrew Mclain on the line. I've got Barrett Gilbreth in studio with me, and we are solving all the world's problems. And speaking of the world's problems, we'll talk about the West's problems. And it falls under this idea of civilizational enemies. Brian, what do you mean? Well, I'd love to tell you. Civilizational enemies. So when you look out upon the landscape of what's going on in our nation, and then even other Western nations, you see Europe, you see Canada, you see Australia, you see whatever. There's an ideology that's driving all of this, and I talk about this often. This ideology is you can call it a lot of things, and we're gonna segue after this into the Democratic Socialists in the midterms or whatever that Fox News is talking about. I don't know why Fox News uses the term democratic socialism. It's all the same thing. It's communism, it's Marxism, it's Bolshevism, it's secular humanism, it's Satanism. It's all the same ideology with a bunch of different labels on it. Okay, well, this is democratic Satanism. It's different. See, it's democratic. It's like, okay, no, it's all the same thing. And I call it an antichrist ideology. And anytime you say antichrist in Alabama, everyone's, are you talking about the book of Revelations? The rapture? No, that's not what I mean when I say antichrist. What I mean is that it is an ideology it's a direct inversion to the Christian faith. Whatever God says is good, these people say is bad. Whatever God says is bad, they put in a parade in front of your children. Okay, think about the parades during Pride Month where there's just dudes that are running around naked with their junk out with kids sitting there. There's a guy in the back of a pickup truck with someone playing the drums on his butt cheeks when he's wearing assless chaps in front of children. These people are freaking sick, okay? It's an ideology that hates Christ, and its entire purpose is to destroy Western civilization. Why? Because Western civilization is a manifestation of the Christian faith and the gospel. The gospel is not just about getting into heaven. The outworking of the gospel is the formation of Christian civilization. And it goes from, the Christ raising from the dead, ascending into heaven where he's the throne, sitting at the right hand of the Father right now, righteously ruling over all things. He's governing. He's Lord of lords. He's King of kings. All authority in heaven and earth has been given to him. Okay, and the people who obey that created this thing called Western civilization. It used to be called Christendom, where Christ has dominion, where Christ is ruling and reigning on earth through covenants with these nations. And the fruit of that is what we know as Western civilization. You go over to Europe and you see the cathedrals and the castles and the art and architecture that we still marvel at today, because Christianity is also a religion of conquest, but we've lost that in American Christianity. It's neutered, it's gelded, it's sissified. You basically have to cut your balls off to be a Christian man these days to walk into a Christian church. It's freaking pathetic. And we've been defanged, and now that the Christianity is no longer a religion of conquest, we're being conquered. We're being conquered by people who possess this ideology, and that is by our civilizational enemies. Who are these civilizational enemies, Brian? I'm glad you asked. Specifically, I think it is. You can call it Muslims and Marxists is one quick way you could do it, but I like to get a little more nitty gritty. And it is, to me, it is Islam. Is an antichrist ideology that is seeking to conquer the West. They hate Christ and they want to take dominion of Western nations. They're doing it through slow immigration. And they're seeping in. You see, they're like, oh, these poor refugees. It's weird that they're all military age men. That's weird. There's no women and children refugees. It seems like it's all military age men who are ready to start killing people, which they're doing. And also doing rape gangs, Pakistani rape gangs. So you have Islam, and of course you have the Hoover Caliphate, who's in listening earshot of this. And since there's such conservative Republicans, I'm told, I'm sure they're listening to this show right now, the Hoover Caliphate. So you have Islam, you have communists, Marxists, Bolsheviks, whatever you want to call that. That is where you're seeing all of the critical race theory, ESG, and all of that ideology coming in. And then you have a sect of the communist, Marxist, Antichrist left that is the LGBTQ plus Niner mafia. Okay. And that is, I was talking to Barrett about this offline. It's one thing if you have a person who's gay, and that like a gay person who is conservative or whatever, and they think Donald Trump's great. That's not what I'm talking about. Okay. I'm talking about the militarized homosexual community that wants to steal your children and, show their genitalia in front of them in these pride parades, and they are a militant political force who's trying to tear down Western norms and traditional families and things like that. And so those three, I believe, I identify as our civilizational enemies. They are the threat. They are the ones who have an eschatology of optimism. What do I mean by that? They are seeking to conquer the West, okay? And what will be left is ashes and ruins that people like Stephen Reed will rule over because he's a gay race communist. Anyway, what do you think about all that?
Well, I think it's interesting to look at the relationships that are being formed between some of those groups that you
Yes.
mentioned. So you've got the Muslims that you're talking about, and the Free Palestine, and all of the Muslim world, and then all of a sudden you have LGBTQ for Palestine, and then if you actually put those people in Palestine, they would be thrown from the tops of buildings.
Yes.
But you have those two groups coming together, and like if you look at that and you understand it is just the chaos that is intended to take down Christendom.
Correct.
And it's those types of whenever you see those types of relationships, you just know that your antenna should be up for something.
Yeah, those are strange bedfellows, pun intended. And Muslims who hate gays are working together to overthrow Christians because the enemy of my enemy is my friend. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. And that's exactly what it is, because the end game is to destroy where Christ has dominion. Western civilization, Christendom, must be destroyed, and then they can fight for the leftovers of what remains. But they know that there's no way that on their own that they're going to be able to defeat us. And so rather than that, they link arms and they join together to fight us. And one of the most frustrating things about it is that the communists, the Marxists know, and I've had Meg Basham come on when I've hosted here before. I should have texted her to see if she wanted to come on and talk about this. She's fantastic.
She's great.
Her book, Shepherds for Sale, is a must-read. Shepherds for Sale by Meg Basham. She shows how the communists have infected and are influencing Christian institutions. That's why we have such a gay, feminized, freaking estrogen-induced church in America now, is because they understand that in order to conquer America in the West, you have to destroy the American church, because the last bastion standing in the way from complete Marxist takeover in the West is the American church. Communists are acutely aware of that. The problem is that the American church is not aware of it. We're the last bastion, but we don't know it. And if we would just lean into historic, bold, robust, masculine Christianity that it's been for 2,000 years and begin to behave like our Christian forefathers and our founding fathers of America, right? Every single one of them, they were deists and they weren't really Christian. Freaking bullcrap, dude. Go back and look. These were Christians who were fighting for this land, for their God, and it was all implied and implicit in the founding documents. They didn't have to say it was a Christian nation because everyone knew it was. Though if you go and look, you can tell. So, yeah, I mean,
Christians have just become, and in large part, they've become pacifist, and a lot of times in the quote-unquote evangelical churches, they don't want to talk about, quote, political issues. Well, the problem is these aren't political issues. These are cultural and Christian issues that have all of a sudden become political.
Yep.
These are foundational issues that you can find in every page of the Bible if you look for them. And so it's not when we choose not to talk about those things, it's not because that's not our role as the church. It's absolutely the role of the church.
Yes. Absolutely the role of the church. And again, these pastors who've been infected, and some of them are just on the take themselves. They're taking money from communists, and they are wolves in sheep's clothing, and there's a special place in hell for them. Others are just pastors, and so I started out the show talking about institutions being captured. You used to be able to just go to church and listen to what was being preached, and it was good. Well, now communists have infiltrated all of the seminaries and the publications and all this stuff that influence Christian pastors, and they feminized the evangelical ecosphere. And they've got pastors literally preaching from the pulpit that getting involved in politics will ruin your witness. And the only thing that Christians should be doing, they basically turn Christianity into a pyramid scheme. It's like, okay, I'm saved. Now what? Well, you just go and get other people saved. It's like, well, no, there's actually, it's why Francis Schaeffer wrote the book, How Should We Then Live? So now that I'm saved and I'm a Christian and Christ is Lord, what does that mean for how I should live? And pastors and preachers and many, if I'd say 90 to 95% of pulpits, are encouraging their congregants not to get involved.
And I think it's the furthest thing from the truth that needs to actually happen, because if we continue to not get involved, it's the loudest voice that wins, right? And so that it continues the erosion from the top down, and we're not, at some point we run out of runway for any sort of representation. We have to stand firm on our Christian faith and in our Christian beliefs to not just be the pyramid scheme like you talked about, but the protectors.
Yep.
It's not just, a lot of people use the term, well, it's the pastors are shepherds and they're just supposed to sort of lead their flocks and make sure they get to the creek side to get their laps of water. What about the part of the shepherd that actually has to fight off the wolves?
Yep.
That's one of the roles of a shepherd.
Amen. It's good stuff. We're up on a break. Talk 99.5. This is The Line. I'm Brian Dawson. We'll be back. We are freaking back, man. So back. Brian Dawson, CEO of 1819 News, that you should be reading on the daily. And if you're not, you can go to 1819news.com. There's a button that says subscribe. Costs you nothing. Click that. Go in there, put in your email address. We won't sell it to China, promise. And you will get the newsletter every single morning around 5:45. It's got all the news that matters, all the opinion pieces you need to read, and all the podcasts we produced in the last 24 hours sent directly to your inbox, very much like a newspaper being thrown on your front steps back in the day, except you don't got to get in your pajamas and walk out there and get it and all that. You just open your inbox. There it is. My favorite thing I hear, doesn't matter if I run into people in the political sphere that hate my guts and want to see me die, or people that love me, they say, Brian, 1819 News, first thing I read every morning. And if you're not doing that, you're missing out. So go subscribe to the newsletter. Do that now, 1819news.com. Click subscribe, email. You're in the cool club. Larry has got a couple of questions he wants to bring to us. We're going to go to him now. Larry, you're on the show.
Gentlemen, enjoy the show. I've never heard of either one of you guys, but what you've thrown out on the table is amazed me. But what I wanted to say, guys, or ask you a couple of questions. I've been extremely blessed, raised 4 daughters, just had an 8th grandchild. But the questions that I have for you guys are simply this: the gentleman that was shot in the back or shot in the, I can't remember the specifics, but I think he was the CEO of the insurance company, and then of course the murder of Charlie Kirk. I wanted y'all's opinions on those scenarios or situations, and just want to hang up and listen. Enjoy the show, guys. Very much.
Larry.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Larry.
Yeah, so first topic, Charlie Kirk being murdered and the CEO of the insurance company being murdered, I think are two radically different situations.
Agree.
And I have a super unpopular opinion about one of them. And so we'll go Charlie. So Charlie Kirk is an absolute Christian martyr, husband, father, one of the greatest men who's ever lived and moved into politics. And it wasn't because he was born perfect like Jesus. He actually had a path that he was on, and he got into conservatism, and then he started really studying things. And the last 18 months of his life, he really began to lean into his Christian faith, began to adopt a very masculine, robust Christianity, historic Christianity, reading Christian history. And his views on things really began to change, and was just wildly effective at organizing and all these other things. And literally right before, not long before he died, that same day, September 10th, he was sharing the gospel with the masses.
Absolutely.
Just hot, raw, 100-proof gospel, and shortly after that was killed. He is a Christian martyr. He will go down in the books with all of the other great Christian martyrs in the history of the Christian church. The guy that's the head of United Healthcare that got killed, you shouldn't go around killing people that are running businesses that do horrible things. But he was the CEO of a company that was doing absolutely horrible things. And if you've never had United Healthcare, don't, okay? People that are going in and they're having serious health complications, serious problems, and they're paying $1,600 a month for this healthcare insurance, and you have to jump through literally like 72 hoops to get an MRI, and you're probably still not getting the MRI. I can just give you my own personal anecdotal. My wife was having some extreme pain in her left arm and we have 7 children. I've got 5 daughters and 2 sons, and she's a stay-at-home mom. And if Christina's down, buddy, the Dawson household is down, okay? And she was down and out, okay? She had basically a bulging disc and some bone spurs that were affecting her nerve, and she could almost not even use her left arm. She's having pain in her face. It was unbearable, and we couldn't get in to get an MRI for like 6 months of trying to get a freaking MRI. It's my understanding this Luigi guy, Tucker Carlson interviewed a guy named Brigham Bueller, who actually went into this entire thing and explained what Luigi's case was. He was having some extreme pain in his nether regions, and had this exact same experience where he was unable for like years trying to go in and get the things that he needed and kept getting denied, and he's in excruciating pain, horrible, and he finally lost it and went and shot the guy. I'm not advocating going and shooting people. Hear me. But he is the CEO of a company that is doing egregious wrongs to people. And what happened to him, is it justified? No. But Charlie Kirk and him are completely different situations. You got a guy who's the CEO of a company that, like I said, is just what they're doing is absolutely egregious. People are literally being harmed by that company. And retaliation came from that. It was not just. He should not have died that way. I think he was a family man and he had kids. But that's not a one-to-one with Charlie. What are your thoughts, Barrett?
No, I don't think it's one-to-one either. Although I would say, we talked about civilizational enemies in the last segment, and I would say that individuals like Luigi Mangione, who take sort of vigilante justice into their own hands and murder a guy in cold blood on the streets of New York, is one of those civilizational enemies. And I don't think there's anything that would ever prompt me to justify that in any way. I think you handle that differently, whether or not you agree with the insurance company and their policies and procedures and all of those things. I just don't believe that it rises. And I think what disgusts me the most about that entire situation was the putting of him on a pedestal, not him, Mangione. Like, he was lifted up and like all of a sudden has like these people who want to marry him and talk. It's like this thing on social media, and they all think he's just this greatest thing since sliced bread, and all these women want to throw themselves at him, and all that just disgusts me. The Charlie Kirk thing, I think that is such a shame, because he was literally in his prime, and he absolutely is a Christian martyr. And I think what was the interesting thing to me about that afterwards was people trying to vilify him or even sort of rationalize his killing. And then the question always became, but have you ever watched any of his videos outside of that 30-second soundbite? And anyone who went down the path of trying to vilify him, the answer was always no. They always took out of context some 30-second clip that they just didn't like. But if you sit down and you watch them, I mean, I in the days that followed that, I have 3 kids of my own, and we sat down as a family and watched hours of those and just pointed to how passionately and how accurately and how willingly he was able to share his faith on these college campuses in the face of absolute evil. And so I try not to get involved in the conspiracy theory side of those things. I think it is unfortunate that Charlie was taken from the conservative movement. And I think it was unfortunate that an insurance company CEO was taken from his family on the streets of New York. Both of those instances are bad in that regard, but I do think those two people clearly are different situations and circumstances. But, you know, I don't excuse either one of those, their deaths. I mean, that's just a place that we don't need to be as a civilization.
Completely agree. And the problem is when there is no justice, people will take justice into their own hands, and it is inevitable that we're going to see more of that, and it's not good. And so how we fix that, one, Luigi Mangione needs to be punished, and so does everyone else who needs to be punished. And it gets back to that idea of swift, consistent justice. And when we see that, the people don't have to even consider vigilante justice because it's being done, and there's no question. But Larry, congrats on having 4 daughters. That's amazing. Love to hear that. But I got to say, man, you've never heard of 1819 News. I mean, geez. Larry, you need to go subscribe.
Got to go
1819news.com, subscribe. And then to my podcast, 1819 News, the podcast. Do that. You hear the music coming up. That means that I got to take a break, and we'll be back. Talk 99.5. We'll be back. All right. Talk 99.5. This is Brian Dawson, CEO of 1819 News, filling in for Andrew Mclain on the line. And, man, so many things to cover, so much going on, and so little time. That's not true. 4 hours is plenty of time, actually. Most sane people on the radio do 3-hour shows, and the crazy folks here at Talk 99.5 had wildly talented people that can do 4 hours a day, which is a lot. It's a lot of talking, and I'm glad Barrett drove up to assist me. I have monologued for 4 hours. Yes, sir.
Fun.
Absolutely. And it was like, I'm driving back from Huntsville. I was in Huntsville all weekend. I went to John Wall's wedding on Friday. Beautiful wedding, incredible couple, future lieutenant governor. Got married and then went to Robert Adderholt's birthday party. It was at Randy Owen's house in Fort Payne. Brought my wife and children with me on both. We attended Trinity Reformed Church up in Huntsville and hung out with some friends up there. And so I was driving back late, and I'm like, I haven't invited anybody on the show. I haven't done any show prep, and I was feeling the stress of it. And I woke up this morning and just shot Barrett a text. I'm like, hey, man, you want to call in? He's like, dude, I can do better. I'm coming in. I'm like, hell yes.
I haven't asked him yet how many people he reached out to before he got down to my name.
The number is 0. You were the first person I reached out to, and as soon as you said you were coming in, I'm like, great, I don't have to call anybody else. Because if he would called in for 30, I would have tried to get a couple more people, because 4-hour monologue is rough. I shoot for 30-minute monologues on my podcast and hit an hour because I can ramble on and on and on about things. But 4 hours is a lot, and so I'm glad he's here.
Glad to be here.
Well, we were discussing offline, hey, what do we talk about next? And he brought up that Brandon Gill's going to be in town. Algop's doing their big dinner Friday. It's packed, power-packed group of people. Obviously, Coach Tuberville and Katie Britt will be there. I think Brandon Gill, Tim Burchett, Bruce Pearl, and then there's one other person that was on the list. Just a power-packed thing. Scott Stadhagen joined me on last time I filled in for Andrew, and he talked about that event and him coming in as Algop, the chairman of Algop, following in John Wall's footsteps. John Wall did a phenomenal job really turning that chairman position into something bigger than it was ever expected to be, and having great events. And that was my thought. Like, whoever fills in after John is going to have big shoes to fill on being able to pull off big headliner events. And Stadhagen has jumped right in and knocked the cover off the ball. And
it's going to be a good event.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. I'm going to be flying to Alaska, so I'm not going to be there, unfortunately. But
Gill's awesome. You watched his videos?
Yes, that is Brandon Gill. I mean, to me, that's the thing. Like, of course, I want to go see all of those people speak, but Brandon Gill is the one that I'm sad about missing out on. And the guy is just absolutely fearless. He looks like a millennial. He's about my age. He's got a beautiful wife, kids, and he's in the fight, and he's identified the civilizational enemies. And that's really how I judge people on who they are as a politician. Do you know who the enemies are, and are you attacking? And are they attacking you? That's the key. That's how I measure everybody. That's the reason I'm so excited about Tuberville. He is crystal clear on who the enemies are, and the enemies hate him because he has brought just the fight to them for the last 5 years in Washington, D.C., and he's going to do the same when he gets here. But Brandon Gill, this guy, I mean, his Twitter feed, his X feed is one of the most entertaining things, and it's just ruthlessly mogging the psycho left. And
but it's so commonsensical.
Yeah, that's it. He's just dropping truth bombs, and it's stuff that you weren't allowed to say 2 years ago. And a lot of the hoity-toity, decorum-loving Republicans in D.C. are just like, are we allowed to say that? And so my favorite Brandon Gill moment ever, he was so he, they do those like Judiciary Committee type things where they basically interrogate people that are there at Congress or whatever. And this lady comes in. They're trying to pass a bill that would make it illegal to protest at abortion clinics. Like, ever since they've been murdering babies in these murder mills, there's always been a Christian saying, hey, you don't have to kill your kid, right? And they're trying to outlaw that. And this lady that's the head of this organization that's pushing that bill was being interviewed by Congress talking about the legislation. And, Brandon Gill says, hey, are you basically a baby murder advocate? That's not the words that he used, and she's like all proud. And she's like, yes, I'd like to, advocate for women's rights and choice and all this other stuff. And he's like, okay, Roger, got it. And so then he just proceeds to question. He's like, so with you being so into this pro-abortion space, like, do you have like a favorite method for how you do it? And she's like, no. And he goes, so, I mean, you're all into it, so you don't have like a favorite way that they do it? And she's like, no. And he goes, okay, let me read some of the methods to you, and then you can tell me which one's your favorite. And he goes into a suction abortion. He's like, so on this one, they take a vacuum that's 27 times more powerful than a household vacuum, and they just basically hook it up to a woman and suck the baby out, and it breaks all the limbs and everything and sucks it out, and they terminate the baby. Is that your favorite? And she's like, oh my God. And he's like, well, and I'm just da-da-da-da-da, and she can't answer it. And of course, and he goes, well, how about this one? And basically, I forget what it was called. And he's like, they basically go in there with scissors and they chop the baby into pieces and then chop back out. Is that your favorite? And she can't respond. And everyone's like, is he really saying this right now? And then the third is the saline abortion, which they basically, and he explains that they go in and they inject the baby with a saline solution that actually melts the baby's skin and kills it that way. Is that your favorite? Oh my gosh, dude. And all it is on clear display for the entire nation to see, communicating the absolute barbarism and insanity that the left is practicing on a daily basis, and just showing the absurdity and barbarity of it all for the whole world to see. And you have to have, I mean, I think we may need to do a GoFundMe to get him like a gold wheelbarrow to carry his balls around.
I mean, he just puts everyone on, like, you are going to have to answer publicly for your ridiculous views.
Yeah,
that's. I mean, I saw the one most recently where he had the Smiths, one of the directors of the Smithsonian, and they have this. It's called the Mass Action Toolkit at the National Museum of American History. And part of this mass action toolkit says that politeness is a form of white supremacy. Well, this white lady was being questioned. She's the director of the National Museum of American History, and he commented that she was a very polite person before he went into this, and she was like, "Well, yeah, I try to be polite." And he said he gave her this mass action toolkit that politeness was and so, excuse me, Madam Director, would you consider yourself a white supremacist? It's just you make them answer for their just unbelievable ideology and just put them on the spot because they can't defend it.
Yeah. And that is, I think one of the things that he points out the best is that anything that's common sense and decent is being labeled white supremacy, because the one thing that heritage stock, founding stock Americans that would be white Anglo-Saxon Protestant Americans, the one thing that we, not me, but we as a people fear the most is being called racist, right? Like, they don't want to be called racist. That's like the kill shot. It's the trump card. It's the kryptonite, the freaking Achilles heel is call a white person racist and they just stop. And so the left, being infinitely more cunning than us in the culture war, says, okay, well, if we can just associate everything that's good with white supremacy, then no one will do anything good and we'll be able to destroy the civilization. And man, there was somewhere I was going with that, and it was good. And this is what happens when you're on the radio for 4 hours, by the way. It just really gone.
But I think it's just important to highlight where I think, and that's the whole idea of political correctness, right? I mean, that's what was the start of the downfall was when we all felt like we couldn't really be honest, because just because you're honest with something doesn't mean you're a racist. Saying that objectivity is a form of white supremacy is unbelievably hard to reconcile. Like, that's part of that same mass action toolkit, that objectivity is being a white supremacist.
Yes.
If you think through these things, and that's that we've been so conditioned to be anti, we can't hurt anybody's feelings. We have to be politically correct. We have to watch what we say. Because if you don't, you're just a racist, and that's the ultimate trump card.
Yeah. And I think specifically as it pertains to immigration, I think that's the thing that he's most effective on. Is we have been told, Western nations, specifically the United States of America, that you have to allow your nation to be invaded by people who don't look like you, who don't share your values, who don't speak your language, who don't worship the same God as you. We have to allow these people to come in and destroy our nation, and if you don't, you're a white supremacist. And so that same premise of And that has worked for a really long time. People don't want to be called racist, so they're like, I mean, I guess we'll just let all these Somalis into Minnesota. I guess we'll just let all this stuff happen. And he's like, hey, if you want to call me a racist, white supremacist, fascist, Hitler, all the things that I get called on a regular basis, It's not that. I actually just want my children to grow up in a country that we recognize. Like, that's it. That's it. And so you call me whatever you want, but I'm going to fight with every breath that I have to preserve our way of life and advance Christian civilization, and actually be proud of the things that our forefathers have done and secure our nation. This is our nation, and it's so simple that Japan is filled up with Japanese people, China is filled up with Chinese people. But when you talk about what is an American, well, that was really clear for a really long time, and now it's getting muddled. And they're like, oh, this is this is the melting pot. This is all these things that no one thought that way until like the 1960s and the Hart-Celler Act. Prior to that, all of our immigration, it literally said that the only places that we will take immigrants from is white Western nations. That was it. That was pre-Hart-Celler. It was written into the immigration code that we're only taking immigrants from Western nations. The thought of bringing Muslims in, the thought of bringing East Indian Hindus with their, friggin' poop-throwing demon gods, okay, and bringing them into our nation, that never crossed anyone's mind. Never. Well, then they started coming up with stuff like, we're a melting pot, bring me your poor, you're weak, you're tired, you're blah, 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 blah. That's new, okay? And we thought that, like, the founders, like, etched that in stone in the 16 and 1700s. No one ever thought that way until very recently. But since we're, public schooled and we just think, well, it must have always been that way. No, it was not. It has never been this way. And people are waking up to that fact and finally having the freaking balls to say, no, we're not going to let our country be completely conquered and ruined by people who do not share any values or ideals or anything with us.
And unfortunately, it's gotten so far to the left that it's going to take people like Brandon Gill, who are just really not afraid to say the hard things, that it's going to take. This is not going to be a painless process to get us back to where we want to go.
Yep.
It's gotten so far gone that it's going to be painful to get back, but it's absolutely worth it.
Amen. All right, well, we're on another break. We're going to hit this break. Talk 99.5. This is The Line. We'll be back. All right, we're back. Talk 99.5. This is The Line. I'm Brian Dawson, CEO of 1819 News, joined by my friend Barrett Gilbreth.
Fun day, man. Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, it's been great. Solving all the world's problems. And as you think about solving all the world's problems, it's easy to point out there and say, oh, this needs to fix, this needs to be changed, everything. But a lot of it does get back to like Jordan Peterson, like make your bed type, thinking that we need to fix the problems in our own selves, in our own houses. And if everyone did that, the change would be unstoppable. But there's no doubt there's things, government policy and all that stuff. But we were offline, Barrett and I were talking about not being fatties. And that's something that we can all do to ease the burden on the healthcare system is not be fatties. And so I topped out at 317 at my fattest. I'm now down to about 274 right now, and my goal is to get down to 225. Been doing. I try and walk 2 miles a day. I used to run like crazy, dude. I used to run 4 miles a day. I could do it in sub 30 minutes. Push-ups, pull-ups, dips. I was in phenomenal shape. And so the idea of walking just seems like gay and not effective, but it's actually extremely helpful. That's been great, mixed with a little bit of going to the gym and doing some peptides. And the one thing I find really, really interesting is that, recently some of those great institutions in Alabama put out a thing basically threatening doctors that if, that they could potentially lose their license if they prescribe peptides. And prior to Biden, there was the big 12 peptides that were actually legal and able to be prescribed, and they've got all this efficacy research and data with very little to no adverse effects and all this other stuff, and all kinds of things from cellular function at the mitochondrial level that helps with energy and brain fog, to repairing torn muscles, to appetite suppression and all these other things. Obviously, the pharmaceutical companies have the peptide market cornered as far as it goes into the GLPs. You have GLP-1, Ozempic, which is semaglutide, GLP-2, which is Mounjaro, which is tirzepatide, and they're now rolling out retatrutide as in phase 3 trials. And that stuff is amazing. I'm actually using it right now, though you're not supposed to be using it right now, but I am. And it's been absolutely life-changing. So a lot of things, a lot of tools that are available out there to not be a fatty, and I'm trying to take advantage of all of them.
I think you got to do the best you can to stay healthy. I think part of it, and there's talked about kind of what we talked about earlier, just having some personal responsibility. Yeah. You owe it to yourself, you owe it to your family, but you also owe it to your country.
Yeah.
I mean, it's no different than being a citizen in any city, just personal responsibility. It's whether it's staying in shape, losing weight, or picking up, trash in the parking lot of your grocery store, returning your shopping cart.
Yeah.
It's personal responsibility.
Say that you can measure civilization's ability to have liberty by whether they put the shopping cart back. Have you heard that philosophy?
I haven't, but if it's measured in Montgomery, we have no liberty.
Which rings true of this philosophy.
Yes.
But so that gets into a deeper conversation. Maybe we can talk about that at the top of the hour. We can get into individualism and collectivism and how, what do those terms actually mean, et cetera, et cetera. But the philosophy basically states that in order to have liberty, there has to be a level of civic virtue that just exists, and that civic virtue is handed down in homes and through education systems and pedagogical systems that reinforce this civic virtue and these type of things, and that has not been done in a very long time, and it's probably intentionally so. If you want a free nation not to be free, the main thing you have to do is disrupt civic virtue, because as John Adams said, that this republic, if you can keep it, as Benjamin Franklin said, it's a republic if you can keep it. This system of government is only fit for a moral and religious people, and he wasn't talking about Buddhists and Islamists. He was talking about Christians and Christian virtue. A society filled with Christian virtue does not need a heavy-handed governance. They will govern themselves. They are governed by the Word of God and the Holy Spirit, and they do the things that they're supposed to be do the things that are supposed to be done, doing the things they're supposed to do without being told and forced at gunpoint. And
it's called having a high-trust society.
Correct. And we are bringing in as many people as we possibly can from low-trust societies as like some type of social experiment.
Third world. That's why we have, look, locks on our doors are not for honest people.
Yeah, that's it. And, import the third world, become the third world. And I don't understand why that's so hard. And I'm really, really hard on East Indians and the H-1B abuse and chain migration abuse and stuff that happens in that community and everything else. Like I'm like, and the reason why is I wasn't hip to what was going on. And when I became hip, I was just like, holy cow. But we've basically been like catechized into believing that, like, well, the only way, these tech companies, like, if we're going to make it to Mars, if we're going to make it to the moon, if we're going to do these incredible feats, we have to bring in these people from this country where they wipe their butt with their left hand and have trash in the rivers. Like, we have to go there to bring people here that can help us do things we can't do here. But then you look at here and you look at the bridges and you look at the skyscrapers and you look at all the things that we've done. It seems like we're capable of doing them, but we're being told we have to actually go over to this third world freaking crap hole and bring them over here so that we can accomplish these great things. And it's like, well, maybe if they were capable of accomplishing those great things, how come they're not doing it over there?
They would have already done it where they came from.
Correct.
Didn't happen.
And also, that's controversial, what I just said right there, which most things I say are controversial. I don't know if I have enough time between now and the break to squeeze this in, but I'm going to. On that same note, well, no, dang, there's the music. Well, maybe this will create some suspense, so you'll stick around.
They have to come back now after the break.
Come back and hear my thoughts on Indians taking over FedEx.
Oh, boy.
It'll be good.
It's going to be a good one.
This is The Line, Talk 99.5. We'll be back.